just going to go straight from the podcast here.
All right.
Welcome to Practically Tactical, episode 80, brought to you by the Firearms Radio Network. The Practically Tactical show is a slightly more practical approach to the firearms lifestyle. The show features a roundtable discussion about guns, gear, and shooting with some of the best firearms instructors, shooters, and figures in the firearms industry. For more information on the show, links to our guests, guns, and gear we discuss, please visit practicpodcast.com/080. On this episode, I may have should have called this episode 79 and a half.
Right.
We originally wanted to have Mr. Blueman from Armor Dynamics and Trek on from MDFI to do the part 2 on what is a responsible gun owner. However, apparently Google has banned him from joining the show somehow. So I had to do a workaround and use an old channel and get this recorded. So this is going to be released on the regular YouTube channel when I move it over and upload it. But we finally figured out a way to get Trek on here. So, sir, thank you for struggling through all this and finally getting back on. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me again.
So I also want to mention that our next episode will be an AAR of the just recently attended MDFI Home Defense Shoot House class, which I can tell you I'm going to say amazing things. And it was an amazing time down there. And the class was just fantastic. Number one, Trek, thank you for teaching that class, because I can tell you any person who has a gun in their house should take that class. Doesn't matter if you carry a gun or not. If you have a gun in your house, you should take that class. It is a fantastic class. It is a fantastic time. The learning you will do is huge. And as well, take the other classes as well, of course, to get here. But thank you for having that class. The curriculum was fantastic. And I'm already sitting here today thinking of things I should have done better. You know, I think my brain is literally just catching up. Like literally the night class we did when I was running the Surefire X300U, I had another flashlight in my back pocket. Why didn't I just grab my other flashlight and splash the ground and then just run main hand? Like, it would have made such a huge difference. I'm thinking of those stupid things now already. I was just reviewing my notes from today, but thank you so much for having that class and having us down there. That is an awesome facility as well. The site is fantastic. Thanks for having us down and doing that class.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been, I got in at 1:00 this morning, back from Illinois, and I've been walking around with a cup of coffee in my hand all day trying to wake up. About 190 runs in the house that Keith and I had to pay attention to, and it was an amazing time with an amazing group of shooters. And the site, as you mentioned, our first time being there, talk about a hidden paradise for the Second Amendment lovers out there. Just beautiful facility, and out in the middle of nowhere, no jet noise, no traffic noise, just in the middle of nature. And so when we weren't teaching, getting to relax was amazing. So I'm looking forward to going back and have you guys out again for the low light, which would be great.
Yeah. Definitely trying to make the low light work. So again, that was such a learning, like literally, I talked about it with a friend, and he mentioned, like, Petty has a quote of, you're trying to replicate the sun. So, 400 lumens ain't going to do it, can't have enough light. That's definitely what I learned.
Absolutely.
But real quick, I do want to mention for everybody out there, if they didn't catch on their shows, the gear stuff has kind of fallen off on the show. And it's funny, we're going to talk about that in the AR video. But so if you're looking for the gear stuff, because we haven't had gear reviews on the show for a while or any gear segments, I've pretty much shuffled all of that over to Practically Tactical on Target. So we have out the OC Customs Glock trigger review. We have that out. Then we have the Tough Products Easy Feed Ranger belt. And both of those podcasts have discount codes for listeners. So if you're interested in those, check that out. We'll be having a Fail Zero. At the time it's recording, a Fail Zero review will be out as well. So please go check out all the gear stuff that'll be coming out on Practically Tactical on Target here on the Firearms Radio Network as well. Search Practically Tactical on iTunes, you'll find it. But let's jump into our main segment here of what is a responsible gun owner. And Trek, I'm going to run through the same questions that I went through with Jeff, and feel free to add anything you want to go on to. But something which was kind of different from the first part of this was we jumped immediately into what is a responsible gun owner. To be a gun owner, you have to be a citizen. So I thought, and I threw this at Jeff, and it's kind of a hard question, but in your mind, what is a responsible citizen?
Oh, we base everything at MDFI off of that. I don't find that to be a difficult question at all. we talk about mind, body, tools, and environment, the responsible person. I always look at it back from the law enforcement point of view with the reasonable officer. And that's a term that anybody out there that's been in law enforcement is quite used to. And quite simply what that means is that if a law enforcement officer is involved in a shooting, and we take from current events, and I think it's very important for all responsible citizens, as the question is posed against, to pay attention to what is going around, not just about what the Kardashians are doing and all the silliness that's going on in the media, but the actual real world thing that can affect us as American citizens. And one of those is current events with law enforcement, and looking past the media bias and looking past the silliness. And you look at Officer Darren Wilson and the Ferguson shooting, and this is not a discussion to talk about the particulars of the case, but Officer Darren Wilson, just like any law enforcement officer that's involved in any use of force, period. That could be anything from grabbing somebody by the arm, putting them in handcuffs, or using lethal force. They're judged on what's known as the reasonable officer standard, and that quite simply means that if they use of force, they're going to be judged and held accountable to the applicable standard operating procedures that they're required to abide by, all the way up to constitutional use of force. And at the end of the day, what they need a nod from the investigator or the supervisor to say, yep, we would have done the exact same thing. And we treat with MDFI reasonable officer, and we say the reasonable person. And that reasonable person is the person in the jury box. They're a prosecutor, they're your neighbors. So when someone says, what is a responsible citizen? A responsible citizen is a person that's a boon to society. I mean, and this is where this whole conversation is going to go, is it's going to require critical thinking. There's no right or wrong answer. A responsible person or a responsible citizen is somebody that is a boon to society, is a boon to their neighborhood, and not a dredge. And that's very, very difficult, and that's up for a lot of interpretation. But at the end of the day, what you have to do as a reasonable person yourself is look in the mirror and say, am I doing really good for my neighborhood? Am I doing good for my town? Am I doing good as an American citizen? Or am I someone that my neighbors are talking about as, hey, don't be that guy to their kids? And we all know those stories of, well, I don't want you to be like little Johnny down the street with his family that lets him do whatever he wants to. But we do that all the time. We have examples of people that we live with that you don't want your family to replicate or your friends to replicate. So a reasonable or responsible citizen is just somebody that, if you were to break them down and have a conversation about yourself or somebody at the dining room table, it would be somebody to emulate, not somebody to watch out for and avoid their traits. And when it starts to where the conversations can go into, especially gun ownership or rights exercising, pretty slow, because you got a lot of spotlights on you, and so you got to be very, very careful not to be a bad example of what to do. But that's quite simply, a responsible citizen to me is the person that's polite, that helps their neighbor, holds doors open, doesn't have road rage incidents. There's all sorts of different things, because we do so many things in our normal life interacting with our fellow man, that it's a daunting task to be a responsible citizen, to be that person that when somebody gets home goes, yeah, I really encountered a nice stranger today. And that's huge, because we really don't see that often. I shook my head today. I held a door for a guy that was coming up, just instead of trying to get in the door at the same time he was coming out, and he just walked by me like it was no big deal. And it just was, I shook my head afterwards. And it's funny, because when I was raised, if somebody did that, and I didn't need somebody to hold the door for me, but if they took that time, I'm going to say a simple thank you. And so that guy right there today in my day was the guy that's just being a jerk, and in my opinion would be somebody I wouldn't want my kids to emulate. But yeah, that's it in a nutshell. It's somebody that gives you a positive example of mankind, or an American, versus the person that's crap, we're going to hear about that guy in the news one day, kind of thing.
So the follow-up question would be, what is a responsible gun owner?
I'm glad you asked this question. And I want to throw a shout out to the guys that were on. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, I hope I should ask that question, especially that's the title. So,
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's a great question. And I want to throw a a shout out to the guys from part one, Jedi and Kevin and the rest of the crew that were on. It was a great episode to listen to, and they had a lot of very, very invaluable things to say. And just like the great show that I just missed due to technical difficulties, there was also a lot of great information there. But we have to think about it. I love the term a responsible gun owner, and you guys had some great statistics there, and I love statistics about, you know, 40, I think it was 40% of firearms that are bought are never shot. And I think then you followed up with, yeah, and then the ones that are, it's an average of like 7 rounds, and they just sit in a safe for the remainder of their existence before they're sold off or heirloom to somebody else. I think of that question as what is a car owner? And this is the fun part. Somebody that owns literally has possession of a car. So a dude could buy a Lamborghini and never drive it. As far as I'm concerned, the guy needs to, you know, get slapped in the face. If you're going to be able to afford a Lamborghini, get out there and drive it. But the question, there are a lot of gun owners that probably put their guns behind glass, and they don't fall into the realm of an irresponsible gun owner unless the way that they're being stored and not touched would be unsecured. So a responsible gun owner to me is somebody that has gone through the processes to make sure that they have a legal gun. And that's simple enough to say. There's a lot of black market dealings out there, and you don't want to buy a gun off the street because you don't know certain, and I don't mean off the street. I've done a lot of very legal gun deals in McDonald's parking lot with the appropriate paperwork, which I could argue, should it be necessary or not at some point in time. But a responsible gun owner is somebody that abides by the particular regulations that are in place, make sure that they're, you know, doing things properly, and the weapons are stored properly. And I'll just say stored properly means that somebody that can't or shouldn't have their hands on them doesn't get their hands on them. It's where the guns actually become in contact with a human. And this is where the guys in episode 1 were talking about an armed citizen. And that could be the armed citizen where the gun owner has this gun owner who likes to just every 90 days likes to wipe his guns down with an oil rag to make sure that they will last until the end of time. The moment he takes possession of those guns out of the safe, he's now an armed citizen, even in his basement. And it's very the same about you and I who wear a gun. And I've worn a gun since I was 21 years old, doing my first security job. All the way through 10 years in the military, and now as an armed citizen. My definition is far different than the guy that just cleans his guns, taking them out of the safe. But yeah, a responsible gun owner, by just the very basic foundation, is somebody that when they have the guns in their possession, from the moment they buy them at the store or buy them from a private individual, they understand the safety rules of the firearm, and they get them from point A to point B safely. And if they are the type of person that maybe owns guns that doesn't use them for defense, okay, cool. You take them out to the competition. When you're in possession of those guns, when they're in your control, they're not locked in a giant 1,000-pound safe, or even when they're in a 1,000-pound safe, you know, you make sure that the access to that safe is controlled. You make sure that you're storing the guns properly. You're making sure that when you handle the guns, you're doing it safely. But that's our base. That's the base level. Just being in possession, to be legally responsible or have legal ownership of that firearm, and where you're going. And I can tell, I saw the smirk on your face, where we're going in is into the wormhole of responsible armed citizens, somebody that's got a gun with them most of the time. So yeah, that's my very long-winded definition.
Okay. And something here too would be, we see irresponsible stuff every day. I'm not talking about guns. Sure. Irresponsible stuff every single day in the news, on social media, on Instagram, and people sharing, oh my God, isn't this funny? The irresponsible things and guns don't mix. I mean, they just don't.
Oh, they mix tragically.
Yes,
yeah,
tragically.
Right. They should not mix, but yes, they do all the time. All the time.
What?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it. I'm good.
I was going to say, what, we asked what, I'll jump on the armed citizen thing here first, but what I would like to talk about with you is, what is an irresponsible gun owner? Because we've defined what a responsible is. What is an irresponsible gun owner?
Well, you kind of know where I'm going with this. We had a few. I think I had maybe 1 or 2 minutes this past weekend where I could actually take a deep breath and relax. This is a bit of a long-winded
Not when I was
answer,
in the
but I
house.
think, yeah, yeah, yeah. It
No,
was
no
it was
hostages
busy.
were safe.
No, um, this is a challenge. This is where the hate. This is where the people start to get offended. And I love the people get offended, and sorry, but that's life. You don't have a protection from being offended. So I may offend some people here, but this is what this is all about. Uh, it's very important. The word irresponsible is so open to interpretation. And so we as gun owners, we as a gun owner, someone that can own a gun, first of all, and do so responsibly, which is what we're going to talk about, is a true American citizen. Even somebody that chooses not to ever carry or use a gun in their defense, but if they have the capability, they have the mental wherewithal, the intestinal fortitude that they could, if they wanted to, be responsible with a gun. That's a true American citizen to take on or be able to handle that responsibility. But the word irresponsible is the difficult thing, because every one of us have to be able to critically think when we use that word. And the story I shared with you is very, very important. And this is where I get my basis from. When I was a instructor for non-commissioned officers in the U.S. Air Force, I trained about 600 young men and women to be leaders of airmen. And I had to teach a curriculum, a college accredited curriculum that was approved by the College of the Air Force, Community College of the Air Force. And there was some stuff that was awesome. I love teaching. And there was some that we joke death by PowerPoint. And if you're in the civilian sector, you know exactly what I'm talking about, because the military is becoming the exact same way. And one of those was substance abuse. It's pretty simple and self-explanatory to responsible people that what some substance abuse is, especially when it comes to illicit drugs. And so when I would have this discussion with these airmen, these supervisors that were in training, I'd say, what's the Air Force policy on drug abuse? And it's easy because it's a zero tolerance policy. So they'd immediately say the canned answer that they have heard for years being in the military, that there's zero tolerance and you can't do drugs. And cool, we get that. But the military, and nobody will probably talk about it, the military is huge alcohol culture. Beer, booze, shots. You work hard, you play hard, and the military deserves it. If anybody works hard, the military does. So being in the 28th Bomb Wing in Ellsworth, South Dakota, we had half of the B-1 fleet. And the guys that keep those giant bombers flying are some of the hardest working men and women that we have in the military, and they party hard. And these guys, I would have to sit there and tell them in this briefing that the Air Force had a policy that would say that if you had more than one drink an hour and more than 3 drinks a night, the Air Force considered you to be a substance abuser, an alcohol abuser. And I had airmen that were 300 pounds, and it wasn't 300 pounds of fat. They were 300-pound dudes that could go out there and work for 16 hours on a B-1 bomber, and they could drink a 12-pack like it was nothing, and they might feel a buzz. And on Monday morning when they came into work, you would never know that they had chugged a 24-pack playing Xbox in their house and had a good old time on Friday night because they showed up to work. At the same time, I had 100-pound airmen that if they had 2 beers, they'd be out taking their clothes off on top of a table and getting stupid. And so now I'm telling these airmen that no matter what kind of airmen you have, if they have more than 3 drinks a night, the Air Force considers them to be alcohol abusers. And I thought this was outrageous, but I had to teach it because I was an instructor of Air Force policy. But what we had to do sort of behind the scenes is we had to talk as NCOs, as non-commissioned officers, and said, guys, you're shaking your heads, it's stupid. I can't tell you that I think it's stupid, but I do think it's stupid. So let's come to a term and an understanding of what are they really saying. And what this is, alcohol abuse, what we could get down to it was, if alcohol starts to negatively impact your airmen's lives or the mission of the Air Force, we got to get involved. And that way, the airman that drinks 24 beers on Friday night that shows up Monday morning and does his job completely sober, you'll never know as the NCO because he's keeping himself in line. It's not affecting his life, and it's not affecting the Air Force mission. And when I take that example of the word irresponsible or abuse, It's the same thing for irresponsible gun ownership. When we as gun owners are doing something that is negatively affecting us or other gun owners, other rights, citizens that care about rights, that we have to start to look at are we towing the line of irresponsibility? And I've got a lot of examples there, and we hear about a lot of examples of irresponsible gun behavior, whether it's at the public shooting range or from media stories that they might be trying to blow out of proportion. And a lot of it, there actually isn't anything irresponsible. There's a lot of people being offended. And that's a complete difference between someone being irresponsible and someone offending potentially the delicate flowers of society that can't handle other people exercising their freedoms. And that is not irresponsible. So we have to do some real critical thinking of the actions of these gun owners, of any of us. Are they truly irresponsible by definition? Are they hurting ourselves, our lives, and then the lives of other people? Or are they just offending people that can't handle freedom? And that's going to be the conundrum that we all have as we go from this point forward, is doing some real critical thinking about the subject.
So I'm going to try to take your story and put it in context of fire.
Sure.
So, I mean, we'll say again, I mean, everybody kind of goes to the story, but we'll go to it too. So, the two guys, open carrying rifles in Chipotle,
I knew you were going to bring it up.
Yeah.
I knew it.
If what I'm, because to me, so if it affects your work, then it's a problem. So if what you do as a gun owner, if that affects Second Amendment / gun ownership / gun owners, that's kind of the same thing, right? If you're doing something that is then affecting us, it's probably not a good thing.
Yeah, I love that example. Open carry in Texas recently for handguns was a no-go. Now it's, from what I understand, a go. I always found this very, very funny because Texas, come on, America, Texas was founded by dudes with guns on their hips. Are you kidding me? Of all that, when I found out that Texas was a no open carry handgun state, I've about lost my mind. And that was step number one. There was a big movement from Texas Second Amendment advocates that were basically saying, hey, Texas, if you're not going to let us carry a handgun openly, we're going to carry long guns until you make sense. And then we have offshoots of everybody who they're going off to antagonize law enforcement, or they're really going to go grocery shopping and open carry a rifle, and they're not doing it for to cause a problem. They're just doing it because they want to open carry a weapon and they're not allowed to carry a handgun. So let's take your example and let's break this down. Let's go back to the original, a responsible citizen, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Every single one of us as Americans is entitled to this. As human beings, we're just happen to have the Constitution protect those. It says, thou shalt have life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, and all of the things that God-given rights, arguably religious or not, they're saying every man, woman, and child on this planet get to have. So cool. So a lot of people like to immediately start to scream, well, it's my rights, and they're right. But you can't go treading on other people. And there's a lot of people that like to put that Gadsden flag on their car and they say, don't tread on me. But they've got no problem treading on other people. And what it should say is don't tread on anyone. And so let's take this Chipotle example. And I don't know these guys. All I know is what the media told me. And if just going by that, I got to be very, very critically thinking about, is the media telling me all the facts? But I'm going to put myself then in their shoes. What we do know, because of photos, is that two guys with semi-automatic rifles wandered into Chipotle to order a burrito, and it caused all sorts of an uproar. It caused all sorts of an uproar from anti-gunners, which we deal with every single day because the delicate flowers of society just can't handle the fact that there are guns out there. And then we got a lot of flack from gun carriers, gun owners, both open carriers and concealed carriers, and open carriers of rifles. I guarantee you there were some people at open carry rifles that thought what they did was wrong. So we have to take a look. And if I was this guy, we have to say, are we on public property where every citizen has the right to be? We talk about open carry marches, where in Michigan, they do it all the time. These guys have their open carry handguns and rifles. They carry them safely, and the police, they work with the police, and they've actually gone into our Capitol building in Michigan. They've been allowed into the chamber with weapons because they've coordinated. They've talked with the police and said, hey, we don't want to cause an uproar, guys. We're on your side. We're responsible, law-abiding citizens. We're open carriers, and we would like to know how to work with you, even though we're on public property and we can show up anytime we want. But we understand the situation. But these guys showed up at Chipotle, and nobody called Chipotle. Chipotle is a privately owned business, whether you like it or not, whether it's owned by a conglomerate of a bunch of rich people that live on an island somewhere, it's still privately owned. And so then this caused Chipotle to say no weapons in our stores. But imagine the gun owner, the responsible gun owner, who called up Chipotle, whoever that might be. And there's probably not a self-help line that you can call and say, hey, I want to carry a gun in your store. But imagine you called Chipotle through a letter, or through a phone call, or you write a letter, or you send an email and you say, hey, dear Chipotle, I am a Second Amendment supporter. I am Joe Civilian, exercising my Second Amendment right when I go out and about in public. I understand that you have a private establishment. I would like to let you know and ask your permission that I'm going to carry a weapon openly so you can see it into your establishment and buy a burrito, because your burritos are amazing, even though I pay for it for 5 days afterwards. So imagine what would happen if Chipotle got that letter. They would probably, let's not be delusional, they'd probably say, no, please don't bring a rifle into our store. But what if they did? And so then what happens is, because there was some wherewithal and some conscious critical thinking, you ask another private entity to walk into their personally owned business and say, carrying a gun, thank you for giving me permission. Then what happens is the delicate flowers of society that can't handle the sight of a gun, because if it's not out of sight, it's not out of mind, they make up such an uproar that Chipotle gets blindsided by it and says, oh crap, well, no guns in our stores, thanks for not asking, jerk. But imagine if that happened and they had permission to say, sir, ma'am, they called ahead. We notified the store manager. Sorry, you're offended. Sorry, we're going to lose business. And they could make a decision after that if they were going to lose more. They are a business. So if they were going to lose all their business because of it, they could change their mind. But imagine if those guys had let them know. I bet you that whole fallout would not have been as big. And we could take that from any situation that we've heard of guys with guns in the public. And I bet you if we did our due diligence, and I personally investigated the great story of Michael LeMay out of Muskegon, Michigan, who was the guy on the news that everybody saw that was open carrying a rifle while walking his daughter to the bus stop. And I saw the news story, and I saw all of us gun owners jumping on this guy as some sort of open carry nut job. And I said to myself, I'm going to try to put myself in this guy's shoes. I bet you there's an underlying story of why he's doing what he's doing. And I got to meet this man, and I got to ask him questions. And here was a guy that was down on his luck, a military veteran, who all he had was the money to buy this 22 semi-automatic rifle. He bought it for home defense. He bought it to put food on his table in an emergency, and he bought it to defend his daughter, because a week before he bought the rifle, a teenager was gunned down a block from his house, 2 blocks past where his daughter goes to the bus stop. And he said, my neighborhood is going to crap. I am not going to lose my daughter. And he would walk muzzle up, finger off the trigger every single day to the bus stop. He'd turn around, he'd go back to the house just as safe, take the gun inside, and then he would go walk to the bus stop to pick his daughter up. And to the point that the bus drivers loved him. The police stopped him. They jacked him up. They took his gun with his permission. And after they realized that they had actually broken the law, because they were giving him a hard time for doing nothing wrong, they became great friends of his. After they learned not only the law, they were spun up by their supervisors. They got to talk to him and realize he was a good man. That's an example of a responsible citizen who was making do with the best that he had. So I hear stories of open carriers with rifles, and I think bad. I hear stories of open carriers with rifles, and I think awesome. It's the same thing. Concealed carriers. It's the same thing for knife owners. It's the same thing for drivers, for people that own hammers, the people that have swimming pools. It's the word irresponsible, and it's the definition that we as all people have to come up with. So there's, that's really your answer right there. And we've got to do some thinking and say, am I hurting or am I helping? And depending on who you ask, you're going to get all sorts of different answers. But you, at the end of the day, have to be able to live with the decisions that you're making.
I mean, that right there is a powerful story. To me, that hits home. And I don't know if I ever told you the story. Do you know how I came to purchase my Epic Sigma? I do
not.
I'm going to tell you this story because to me that hits home with me. So most of the listeners know we do foster care. We've done it now for 4 or 5 years. So let's see, it would have been 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, something along those lines. Actually, the son that we adopted, now that we finalized in December, was at the time he was in foster care. He could have been going home maybe, but anyway, so at the time his mother had gotten a new boyfriend. That boyfriend had drug and weapons charges together. So in the same criminal case, had felony drug and felony weapons charges together. He did his time and got out. Any person that gets involved with somebody that's kids in foster care that they want to bring along, because they come to our house, they pick up kids, and there's interaction. They had the county approves them. They run a background check. They approve them. Well, they approved this person to come on visits with the mother, to come pick up the kids. So basically, this person was coming onto my property, and the county said that's okay. To me, that was like to me, it was like, I didn't understand how you went from point A to point B. Like, here's a person that, number one, should not even be involved with this woman. This woman does not need it. She's trying to get her kid back. 2, we're taking that and mixing this in. And, to me, it was like, how do you go from point A of it's this to point B, he's approved? And I was like, well, obviously I am not geared up to defend my family with what I have. And that's when I went out and I literally went to Gander and I was like, what's the best value gun I can buy? And it was a 40 Sigma. And that's how I got it. And to me, like the story that you just talked about there, really it's home with me of sometimes you have to do what you have to do. If you have to open carry a Sigma, well then I'm all for it. We've had some differing of opinions on that, and I think you really nailed it on the head there of if what you're doing is for the right reasons and you're not hurting the community when the real truth comes out, then I think you're good to go. And Trek might have frozen up there. So hopefully he'll come back on that part there. But for those that don't know, Trek is back. Are you back, Trek?
Yep. Sorry, my signal got a little weak for a second.
Oh, that's fine. Did you get all the story there? Still there, Trek?
Yep. For some reason, it's going in and out. I apologize.
Oh, no problem. But to me, that story just hits home. Still there, Trek?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. Can you hear me? It is just one of those nights, my friends. It is one of those nights. There are a few people watching. So Marty, AC, thanks for watching. And there's someone else. Maybe that's Phil. I don't know. But thank you guys for watching. I'm just going to keep this rolling live till we can wrap it up. So if you have to stare at me in dead silence for a couple minutes, I apologize. I know Trek's going to be working through it here. But I will finish the rest of my beer. You're back?
All right.
Are you back, Trek?
I'm playing that. Yeah, I'm trying to see what happened. I'm not sure what was going on.
Well, your video's off, and if you want to keep that off, you can just roll with it off if that helps.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do here. This is the downside of being up in the freedom of the northern woods of Michigan.
Well, trust me, I envy you.
Yeah, I almost did this by campfire tonight. Just gonna let you know.
Smoke signals this week on Practically Tactical.
That's right. You know your story, and this is it. This is the reality. Uh, there and the question of open carriers, uh, and I know that it was talked about in the part one. Um, Open carriers get a bad rap, and it's because they're very, very visible. Your situation, you know, in the state of Michigan, it's easy. It easily costs $300 for somebody to get a concealed weapons license, a CPL. You got your fingerprints, you've got your class, and then you've got the administrative paperwork for the application. So now you've got somebody that has to go buy a handgun, and let's talk worst case scenario: High Point Firearms, High Point 9mm, 380, whatever it is, $80 to $100. So now they're looking at $400. Ammunition, okay, even if it's just a box of ammo to put in the gun, $420. Looking at the cheapest holster you can find, an Uncle Mike's floppy holster, probably what, $10, $15. So we're upwards near $450. I have quite a few people that I know that have to make a decision every single week of, do I put food on my table or do I put gas in my car? So when the question comes up of what kind of gun should I buy, that's not even an option. There's no discussion. It's the cheapest gun that I could find if I have the spare cash to buy it. Um, and so we have to put ourselves in other people's shoes. Not having the cool guy Gucci gear that some of us have does not make one irresponsible. It's how we wield such things. Um, and I have open carried a rifle before, and it was wearing uniform in the United States Air Force. And I can tell you right now, uh, those people that open carry a long gun properly, man, you can't relax for a second. You can't bend over to pick something up off the ground without thinking about something. You've got to watch out where your gun's at all times. I mean, there are people that are doing it right, and they may be offending people because the presence of that long gun scares them, but they can still do it and abide by the life safety rules of firearms handling. They can do it by not treading on others' private property rights. But there are also people out there, and we see it all the time, that they're just dum-dums. And we have a lot of people out there, gun owners, car owners, baseball bat owners, homeowners, parents, that are just not smart enough to get themselves out of a paper bag. But there's also people out there that are doing a great job. And of course, we don't hear about those people.
No,
We hear about the bad examples.
Yeah, and something to which when Jeff was on the show, which I kind of want to talk about, because I got maybe a little heated up there, was it just came out those two guys or one guy walking through a Walmart, racking a shotgun and loading it in a Walmart. And to me, that would have been instant pull gun on them and instant follow all my commands or you're probably going to die. But what, I'm not sure if you heard that story or read into it at all. But
I certainly did not.
There was one, I believe it was two gentlemen were open carrying shotguns in a Walmart, and they were racking the slide and then putting rounds in the tube. And to me, that would, if I was there, that I would have pulled my gun instantly. And had they not followed commands, I probably would have put that. You can't, in my opinion, rack a shotgun while open carrying or be doing anything along those. Imagine if I was concealed carrying and walked around, and I did press checks, or unload magazine, rack out the round, reload it back in, walking around the store.
It's interesting you say that. I just did a review of the Canik TP9SA, Century Arms, $300 gun, really cool gun. I'm a Glock fan, you know that, but the model that I tested had this decock on it, and it's got this button on the top that decocks the weapon just by pressing it, and the only option that the user has is to then run the slide again. And as I was writing the review, and I actually had it happen where I accidentally bumped the decock while while adjusting a holster after doing a demonstration in front of students. And I remember thinking, wow, well, this would have made a dead gun if I had needed it, if I was actually someone that only had $300 and bought this really cool, really accurate, really reliable gun, but it has this really bad feature on it. And I'm like, the worst part is, as I was writing the review was, even if I noticed I bumped it, I would have to draw that gun out and cycle the action and kick a round out just to get the gun ready to fire. So I was thinking, like, where would you do that? Would I go into a bathroom stall? Would I and so you're right. And we look at, I don't know the situation. I wasn't there. I can tell you from what the information you're getting me, these guys aren't being responsible because this is stuff that should have been done up to that point. If you're loading the gun in Walmart, what condition was the gun in to defend your life from the moment wherever you took that gun off either up against the wall or out of the safe? And now you're loading it in Walmart. So even let's take every other person out of the picture. You carry a gun for defense, but your gun wasn't ready for all the time before that moment. That's a problem. So that, I would say, that's a training and education and just common sense issue. And then we start to go, well, I got to think about my fellow Second Amendment supporters, my armed citizens out there. If I saw a guy starting to feed ammo into a gun, manipulate the gun, I'm one muzzle movement away from getting shot in the face. Because that muzzle and the way that I'm carrying the gun and the way that my attitude is going to be, is going to dictate whether I live or die. Because cops, when they get a shotgun out of the armory, they get handed a shotgun, they load it, they put it cruiser ready, but they're doing that inside the armory around a bunch of other cops. They don't do that while they're standing out in the street. When you hear them do that, when they run the action, they're making it from cruiser ready into basically ready to shoot. And that's also, I mean, that's you hear stories about that all the time. Cop got out of the squad car and ran the action. Wasn't doing it to scare the populace, was doing it to get the gun into action, getting the gun ready to into a situation that they might have to fire. In my personal opinion, that's absolutely wrong on a few levels. I would be very curious, and this is the worst part. There's a lot of things non-gun related in the news recently that offend me. And I'll throw this out there for all the viewers or listeners. My goal in life is, I'm a very libertarian thinking person. I want Caitlyn Jenner to be able to marry a ficus and have a micro Uzi responsibly slung while smoking a cigar in her bakery while making a cake, screaming, "I hate white people," and telling a straight couple that she will not make a Hitler cake for them. And that confuses so many people because they're like, I should be offended and not. I want citizens of these United States to be able to do whatever they want and offend whoever they want. And as long as they don't affect the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of somebody else, if you don't like it, don't go into their bakery. If you don't, so I'm very, very liberty conscious. But people they really need to think about how they're affecting other people. And that's huge. That's very, very huge, especially when it comes to firearms. And so people need to think about how they're affecting other civilians who should, by definition, as a responsible citizen, be using that Second Amendment to uphold life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness for all people.
Now, what do you think the name of that bakery would be?
Oh, man. WTFbakery.com #YOLO. That's about all I got. That's about all I got. But you know what?
Bakery. That'd be
I would go to that bakery. Just so I could get told that I can't have a Trek is awesome cake, and I wouldn't sue the bakery over it. I would just go to another bakery that'll bake me a cake. I'd probably say, nice Uzi, and I wish you the very best while marrying that ficus. I just don't get too wrapped up about those things.
Yeah, I have more important things to worry about.
We got a lot of things to worry about.
Here's the question again. This question is directly from you. I've given credit to you on all the shows of, in the open carry versus concealed carry debate. Obviously the open carriers are called out a lot, but and we talk about with Jeff on the show, of there's probably a very small amount of actual concealed carriers actually trained to, if they got into a situation where they're really trying to put the odds in their favor. But open carriers are really called out for all the time. But what about, concealed carriers? There probably should be a lot of concealed carriers that are called out. On the first show I mentioned, a lady who, came and said, "Oh, I'm concealed carrying," and she's wearing a holster.
That was great.
Shoulder
that
backwards.
Was great.
With up, I think it was the LCP pointed backwards and literally flagging everybody, and the sad thing is there's a lot of them out there. So, open carriers like that should be called out with the same, fever that we do the open carriers, right?
Yeah. I remember that story, and that was a great story. And Jedi was, first of all, he and I think of stepbrothers. I think we became best friends on that show, and I haven't had the chance to meet him. We are in the same circle of people out there in social media. He and I became best friends. The stuff that Scott had to say was awesome. And
did we just become best friends?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, I think I texted you that while I was watching the show. And I really. So
before that, though, you wanted to hit him with a shovel and bury him, and then when he said that, you became best friends.
I can't say we were truly made like the movie, but yeah. So open carriers, yeah, they get a bad rap, and just that story that you told about the shoulder rig was great. They get a bad rap because they're in sight, and I hate to say this, especially the anti-gun crowd. So many of them are too stupid to understand that 1 millimeter of fabric. There's people walking around with Desert Eagle 50 cals and Raven Concealment Vanguard 2s shoved down the front of their pants, and they just don't see it. So they just don't even think about it. I'm sure there's lots of people that I hold the door open for that say thank you. But if they knew that I was carrying, a Glock 19 with a spare magazine, a folding knife, pepper spray, and everything else, they would lose their mind, even though I'm the most polite person to everybody that I meet. Scott said one of the best things. He was asked the question directly, should people have to have training to carry a gun? I don't think people should have to have training to carry a gun. I don't think people should have to have training to own a gun. I don't think people should have to have training to drive a car. I don't think to own a baseball bat, to build a swimming pool, to build a house. But what I, as a responsible citizen, in my definition, demand is that they be held accountable for their actions. So if you want to hand the keys of your Ferrari to your 16-year-old daughter and say, make good choices and never teach her anything about the gas or brake pedal, first of all, you got more money than you have wits, because that car ain't coming back. And two, you're sending somebody out there to do awful things. It's the same thing. I don't think people should have to have training about anything when it comes to firearms. But the moment that you sweep somebody with a gun and get shot in the face, the moment that you ND in somebody that you love, the moment that you put a hole into your car because you were being stupid, you need to be held accountable. And if it's just monetary, that's the best case scenario. If it's negligent homicide, you're going to be seeing some prison jail time. And that's Teddy Roosevelt had one of the best quotes. No man is above the law, and no man is below it, and nor do we ask their permission when we demand that he obey it. And that's exactly it. That's freedom to live dangerously and say, I could get shot by some dumb with a gun, but that's why I'm not going to deny my neighbor the right to carry a gun. So if a dude comes walking into Walmart and is running the action of his shotgun and starts sweeping people with the muzzle, stupid hurts sometimes. It doesn't matter if you didn't mean to sweep somebody with a loaded gun. If they perceive you to be a lethal threat and you get put down, it might have been an accident. You didn't mean to do it, but you felt the ultimate responsibility for your actions. And we've gotten away from that as a country.
That
to
is
feel
true.
Actual responsibility. You're absolutely right. And so open carriers get a bad rap because everybody can see it. If you want my personal opinion, and I would never dictate this on my neighbor, this is just a funny little quip. I think everybody should be allowed to conceal carry.
Absolutely.
Because if anything, it would allow the anti-gun people to just be too stupid to not understand that everybody's walking around with a gun in a backwards shoulder holster like you were, you were talking about. Open carriers should be the ones that have to be permitted. And open carriers, I'm not hating on you when I say that. I'm making a joke. And the only reason I say it is because to open carry a long gun, to open carry a handgun, period. I used to carry one as a cop. I hated it. Why? Because I can't go to a urinal in the bathroom because I'm putting my back to the rest of the room. So I had to be worried about someone grabbing the gun at any point in time. I got to be conscious of that. I know that everybody can see that I have a gun. So I'm not going to tell an open carrier they're wrong and that they're setting themselves up to be shot first. As a responsible citizen, these are the concepts. Here's the example I use all the time. As a grown adult, I can design and build a house that doesn't have door locks on it. There's nothing wrong with that. But as a grown adult, I should say to myself, well, I didn't want door locks, so there's a chance that one day someone's going to walk through the front door of my house because I didn't lock it. And as long as I, as a grown adult, understand and respect the decision that I've made and have a plan to deal with the person who comes through my door because I didn't lock it, then carry on. And that's it. So when I think of open carrying a rifle, I get exhausted just thinking about it, because I remember having to sit there at a chow hall table and put the muzzle down on the ground, put the buttstock between my legs right below my chin, trying to eat, because otherwise the gun's out of my control and I'm muzzling people. So that gets exhausting just having to think about. You want to transition to a rifle rack, all of a sudden I got to look around and find a place there's nobody to point a gun out before I transition from muzzle up to muzzle down, or muzzle down to muzzle up. It's the stuff that we do on the range all the time, but I got a berm there. And as you guys found out, maneuvering with a long gun in the house gets to be a daunting task. So a responsible citizen just understands that, yeah, I'm putting a gun on my hip. My t-shirt's tucked in. People can see it. So I'm not going to go to the Kid Rock concert with 10,000 people there, even if the guys at security said, you're a responsible citizen, I'm going to let you into this festival with that gun on your hip. You should go. I am not going into that concert with 10,000 people. I cannot keep an eye on the grip of my firearm and enjoy the concert at the same time. So we need to get past that part of the argument and just say, you're either a responsible open carrier or an irresponsible open carrier, or you're an irresponsible concealed carrier or a responsible concealed carrier. And then we just say, you know what? You're either a responsible gun owner or you're irresponsible. I don't care anything about how you carry, because how you carry is only going to be reflected in, are you responsible or irresponsible?
Absolutely. And I'm just imagining for the first person that builds a house with no door locks, I'm assuming the first law the government would pass would be, okay, we can't have this anymore. So new law of all houses can't have doors. I feel like that would be the first, that would be the government solution. I feel like
that will be, one, those houses exist in Canada. And two, that they'll probably also say you can't back into your driveway. The conversation that we had at the shootout. So you can't collect rainwater. Can't collect rainwater, and you can't smoke in your own private bar. They'll find a way to tell you can't do something. That's for sure.
Yeah, that's right. During the class, there was some story that it was like Jacksonville or something where you were going to it was the city passed some law. You can't back up in your driveway. I don't even know the thought process on that. Like, I don't get how that's dangerous.
People are stupid. You just have to, sometimes you just got to go, people are stupid.
That's fact. But that brings us to the next point there everyone hit on of the responsible gun owner versus the responsible armed citizen.
Sure.
What is a responsible armed citizen? Because as we discussed in the part one, there is a difference between a responsible gun owner and then a responsible armed citizen. Obviously a person that makes, and Jeff said it great too, is it's a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle of all of us that carry guns every 100%. Single day, every single place. It's a lifestyle. Guess what? I wear pants during the summer. That's just the way it is. Rarely do I wear jeans, or rarely do I wear shorts, and I have shirts and gear, whatever else. But it is a lifestyle choice. But also along with that concealed carry aspect of, I need to get trained with it. Number one, I don't want to die if I get into a situation. Heaven forbid I have to use my gun, which I don't want to. But if I do, I want to give myself the best odds of winning. To me, that's just simple math of what do I have to do to make sure that I win? Because I hate losing, especially in a gunfight. But
That's a trick you can only do once.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Is what gives me best out. Okay, firearms training, and to me, if you are a responsible armed citizen, the training, continued training, because skills are completely, they go away. For example, when at the shoot house class, when just a gear check and everything, I hadn't shot since the last class. The first plate rack drill we did, I went through almost a magazine. Second go around, okay, 2 shots. When we first started, actual, shooting the shoot house, not that great. As we went along, things came back, started doing a lot better. That skill goes away so quickly, but so does the mental aspect too of that. And for me, a responsible armed citizen needs to train and continue training. But what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because of especially I'm an instructor, so I want your money. No, I mean, no, make a joke. Yeah, I'm gonna go back. I got to go even more basic. I got to go back to the root of responsibility. A responsible armed citizen, a responsibly armed citizen. There's only 2 ways to get something in life, and this is not me. This is I'm sure a very old sage white-haired person said this. I don't know who it was. I'll just give credit to whoever it was that said it. There's only 2 ways to get something in life, and that's to ask and to force. To ask and to take. So I can ask somebody for something, or I can take it through force. And this is historically, everything breaks down into asking or taking. When you're a responsible armed citizen, you think about it. That neighbor that every one of us has that says guns are bad, and I can't say why, but I'm delicate and the thought of a gun scares me. I can drive a car, I can have a kid, I can have a swimming pool, operate power equipment, but I just don't trust myself or any other citizen of these United States to have a firearm and do it so responsibly. These people, think about what they're doing. They're relegating themselves for their entire life to only be able to ask. And that's how all of us should be. I don't want to take something from my neighbor. I'm a responsible person. But there are people out there that will not ask. Or if I do get asked and I say no, they will take. So there's people out there that have relegated themselves to only being able to ask and only being able to say yes, because if they say no, they will be dealt with. And that's by bad people that will use force. So a responsible person has a tool. And yes, it is a tool. It is a life-saving tool. It is a scuba tank. It is a parachute. That's why we carry it, is because it is life-saving. It could be our life. It could be our family's lives. It could be that person that hates guns. That might be their parachute and they don't even know it. And it has been used historically to save people that probably would have said no to guns if they had been given a choice. So a responsible citizen now has a tool on them that if used incorrectly, they can have whatever they want. I mean, we have to think about that. I've got a gun on that I can walk up to any person without a gun and say, I like your car and I want it at the cost of your life. And that takes an amount of responsibility to say, holy crap, I have the power to save and I have the power to do harm if I act irresponsibly. So that right there should be the first step, is to say we wield great power if we do something properly and improperly. And then we have to say, holy crap, well, I need to mind my P's and Q's. I cannot go out there and be road raging on the road because I've got a gun on and I've got a big truck and now I can start blasting through traffic because nobody's going to mess with me because I'm carrying a gun. No, you got to drive the speed limit. You've got to use your turn signal. If somebody road rages behind you and doesn't pose a threat to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, you just got to call the cops. You can't sit there, chase them down unless they're posing a harm to others in life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and enact a citizen's arrest or whatever, detaining them for law enforcement. But if they're just being a jerk driving fast, you can't be, you got to realize you got great power and you can't abuse it. You can't start swearing at somebody and cursing them up and down because you know you got a gun and they don't have a gun. And if they throw a punch and try to hit you in the face and bounce your head off the concrete, well, now I can shoot them. No, And this is, I know Jeff's a big proponent of less lethal. So then you have to start saying, man, I got to get some training on some other disciplines. I've got a tool on me that can put holes in somebody. Oh my gosh, people have tools that can put holes in me. So I need to have the wherewithal to say, I got to have some medical training, and I've got to have some use of force training, and I've got to have some legal training, and I've got to keep progressing. It's the same as someone with a Ferrari. They're going to go to, if they can say, well, I'm not going to take this incredibly fast vehicle that can just kill me and everybody around. They're going to go to some sort of driving school, a closed track, and they're going to make sure that they understand what G forces that thing can take. So if they try to take an on-ramp at 120, they don't go skidding off and hurt somebody. That's a responsible driver. So training, of course, is going to be in there, because a responsible citizen understands that they own every round. And if you fire 10 rounds and 9 of those rounds hit a bad guy, and that 1 round hits an innocent person, you are irresponsible, period. NYPD has dealt with this. They shot the guy outside the Empire State Building, and they shot 9 innocent people. How do you go and get beers bought for you by your buddies for doing the right thing when you shot 9 innocent people? I don't care if they were by ricochets. Rule number 4, I'll know my target, its background, its foreground. So the responsible gun owner training, of course, is going to be there. But at the same time, a responsible gun owner can say, I don't have the money. I don't have the money for an MDFI class. I don't have the money for Trident Concepts, Sentinel Concepts, Pat Rogers Shoot House, which would be awesome. I wish I could afford a 5-day shoot house class with Pat and get all the skills that I need. But if they know they can't afford it, they need to slow themselves down, and they need to be, all the other aspects of responsibility need to be even more reinforced. Their situational awareness needs to be even better, because if they're situationally aware and they can pick up on a bad situation and say, hey, wife, kids, listen, this isn't working out. We got to get in the car. We got to go, and I'll explain to you later. Because if they were paying attention and know that their shooting skills aren't up to par and that they pose a potential liability to good people, yeah, you can't do it. So training, of course, is going to be there. But I know that there's a lot of good people out there that want to train. You mentioned that you wanted to train with like 20 different instructors and 40 different classes, and there's not enough money in the world to do it. And I'm right there with you. I have to make a decision, you know, car repairs or, you know, whatever the next thing is, because we ain't going to get rich running MDFI, but we sure as heck love our life and what we do. So yeah, we have to make decisions all the time about, this is what I can do because I have the way and the means to do it. This is what I can't. So if I can't do it, if that tire is going bad on my truck, I can probably just drive 30 miles an hour around town, but I shouldn't take that cross-country trip with a bad tire, because I'm a liability to myself and everybody else on the road. But you see those people out there with the donut. That donut's been on their car for 2 months, and they're doing 75 down the highway. That's the same person that could be making bad choices with a gun or any other thing out there. And that's it. So yeah, training's a big one. But I'm not going to force it on somebody, but I'm going to demand that if they shoot an innocent person, you're going to take the full blunt. And I've told my business partner, I said, if I do something that, if I were to ever pull around and hit somebody that didn't, I would give up my guns. I'd give up my job, because I have been so irresponsible. I have overrun my safety headlights. I have done a bad thing when I try to do a good thing, and all of us need to have that discipline. But there's a lot of people out there with no training. I'm not going to say that they're wrong, but I hope that as responsible citizens and responsible gun owners, they're like, I can only shoot good at 3 yards on a beautiful sunny day. And the moment my feet start moving, the moment I go to 7 yards, I am a huge liability. So if there's an active shooter, I am not running in there, because I do not have the training to be an asset. I have only the training to be a liability. And that self-awareness, that being able to say that about yourself, is so important for all of us.
No, you're 100% correct. And that's something that, I mean, definitely is hammered in, especially with the USEC, the gun, and the Foundation handgun, of you're responsible for every single bullet that leaves your gun, that has you on it. And something like Jeff talked about too, is you're responsible for every gun as well. Like Jeff talked about, he couldn't imagine, was like, if one of his guns got stolen, he couldn't sleep at night, you know, of what that could possibly due to someone else. So I
Sure.
believe you're 100% correct there. And here's something too of, we've definitely kind of hit it. I think kind of hit this already, but what can gun owners do to be ambassadors to gun ownership? To people that might be anti-gunners, and to I think a lot of people are saying there's a lot of people that aren't picking a side. They literally don't care. It's not part of their wheelhouse. It's not part of their lives. They're not really either way. And so I think to me that's a big outreach that avenue that we have as gun owners. But what's kind of your thoughts on how to be ambassadors of gun ownership?
The biggest one is we love to rally around the second, and we get it, that the Second Amendment allows for every other right, period. You can say I got the right to free speech. Well, when somebody, instead of asking you, tells you to shut your mouth, and that could be another person with a weapon, and I'm not saying a gun, that could be a baseball bat, a hammer, a Toyota Prius at 80 miles an hour. Someone could tell you to get off that stage, and it has only been the Second Amendment that has allowed people to have the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the 10th Amendment, all of that. So we get it. But at the same time, we got to take a deep look as ambassadors and understand that all rights, everybody has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So if you want to get bent out of shape about the government giving permission from one group to do another thing, maybe we need to be asking the question, why are we asking the government for permission to do it anyway? So that's a big thing, is we the people have the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The government seems to have forgotten that. And the government seems to have been giving permission to one group but not the other group on different rights. We all have to put the Gadsden. Every American needs to have the Gadsden flag in their head. It doesn't have to be on their car. It says, don't tread on me. And then we need to take it one step further and say, don't tread on anybody. So that's the first step, is to look at people and say, I don't agree with you or your lifestyle or anything about you. But you know what? As long as you do it in your house and you don't affect my life, carry on, sir, ma'am. And you know what? I'll high five you for it. Because at the same time, I'm going to demand of them that they do not try to take my life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that is the core foundation. The second thing is we need to, and this, the Article 15 guys, they are some of the funniest dudes that I have ever watched. They are great. I got to meet them at SHOT Show. They're hilarious. I'm looking forward to their new film that they're working. They got a Kickstarter project coming out for Range 15. But at the same time, people have flooded to give backing to what will be, I'm sure, something awesome to watch. Billy Johnson, NRA, yep. You had him on. $225,000 was trying to get money for a project to do a documentary, not a movie, a documentary about the attack on the Second Amendment. Failed. Brian Terry Foundation tried to get $100,000 for the Brian Terry Foundation about a fallen federal agent. I'm at 55,000 out of a $100,000 goal. I hope to get to that at the end of this year. And this is not a plug for fundraisers, so don't take that as this way.
No, please plug it. I would welcome that.
Well, we need to. There's so many good causes out there. Get involved with a good cause, but an ambassador to the Second Amendment, to responsible gun ownership, needs to say enough is enough. They have been picking away. We have the most regulated right as Americans. The most regulated. We have to get paperwork. We have to do fingerprints. We have to do all sorts of things for this right. And they keep wanting, the mouse keeps wanting more of the cookie. They keep taking more and more of the cookie. And the time that cookie is all gone, they're going to ask for a glass of milk. And there's not going to be any left. So you need to, all of us, I'm saying you as in me, you got to write. You got to get involved at a local level. Ann Arbor school system here in Michigan has violated state law by saying that open carriers cannot bring guns onto school property because of the reaction of a bunch of people that don't have the intestinal fortitude to deal with freedom. So I guarantee you, they would rally for probably drug rights. People should have the right to smoke marijuana and same-sex marriage. And I'm not going to argue yes or no on those. In fact, I'll leave my beliefs on that completely out of the picture. But while they would argue for individual rights on those topics, they would say, well, no, you don't have the right to bear arms because your gun scares me. So Ann Arbor school system has violated state law, which says you cannot do that as a school system. And right now there's a big lawsuit. Gun owners in Michigan need to get out and say, you can't do this, and we're not going to allow it, and we're going to get involved, and we're going to make sure our voices are heard. California, the Firearms Policy Coalition, the FPC, they have a budget of about $200,000 a year. The NRA spends $100 million on marketing a year. The FPC in California has won more battles than the NRA has won in the longest time on a budget, a fraction of what they spend on marketing, and they need help. So we need people to get to the whole classic cliche, think globally, act locally. We've got to take our rights back, and you've got to do it professionally. You've got to write eloquently. You have to write your leadership. A lot of people want to make statements and say, well, they're taking our rights. And then you ask them, well, what have you done? And they say, I liked something on Facebook once. What? You clicked a button? Congratulations. Have you written your local representative? You said there's no chance in heck that you're ever going to get back into office if you ever try to take another chunk of our Second Amendment right. And oh, by the way, you remember this senator from Michigan? Yeah, he just opened fire on his girlfriend's car the other day, and now he's been arrested on gun charges. And oh, by the way, he was an anti-gun senator from Michigan. So you go ahead and tell me how that works. These are the letters people need to be writing towards their elected representatives. And then if we can change it at a local level, we can get somewhere. And on the flip side, as you asked about the people that are anti-gun, the people that are on the fence, I have made the mistake in the past 2 weeks. I have engaged in some of the biggest derp conversations about people that are purely anti-gun and they cannot think for themselves. But at the end of every conversation where I realize I'm not going to change their mind, even though I'm speaking fact and they're speaking emotion, I have invited them free of charge to one of our classes as my guest, and they can educate us, because I tell them as a responsible citizen, I have been proven wrong and I have changed my viewpoint and my stance because people have educated me in my life. So if you are willing to try to educate people and show us how we are wrong, and you'll be willing to listen to a counterpoint based on fact, come on out, see what we have to offer, and then you can counter it. And if you can change my mind, maybe I'll become a roller disco owner poet, because maybe I'll believe that the Second Amendment ain't all it's cracked up to be. But I have yet, of over 5 offers in the past 2 weeks, no one will take me up on my offer because they got nothing. So what we can do is we can say politely, come out to the range with me. You keep saying guns are scary. When was the last time you shot a gun? Oh, look, never. Well, you know what? When you were 14 years old and someone was saying you're going to start driver's training soon, you were scared crapless of that car too. And now you drive, putting on your lipstick, checking your messages, texting. And you don't want anybody to tell you about how to drive your car because you're a good driver. Well, guess what? There's a lot of us out there that we don't like you telling us how to run our lives when it comes to guns. So we've got to engage those people politely, get them out there. There's some people you're going to get to a point you can't fix. It's called triage. You just got to look at them, cock your head to the side, make a little smirk, and just go, you're a special kind of stupid in your head, and move on to the next person because you're not going to help them. And when it comes to people on the fence, even more so, get them involved. Absolutely, just get them involved. Invite them to something. Have them come on out. Give them a safe environment on the range. Take them out plinking, shooting cans with 22s. And I know the days of the cheap 22 are over, so maybe only shoot a few cans. Don't shoot all day. Save some ammo. But there's a lot of people out there that don't understand that food may come in nice, neat little packages. There might not be a target shooter out there, but there might be a hunter. Because if someone would have taken them out in the woods and say, hey, I'm not out here shooting animals because I just want to kill something. I'm shooting a deer because guess what? This deer is going to feed my family for half of a year. So you might get somebody that's involved in actually being a little bit more self-reliant. So if we can target shooting, competitions, fun, IPSC, IDPA, long range shooting, there's a lot of people that do those that they don't carry a gun, but they are gun owners. And they're really safe when they're on the range, when they do their competition shooting. And it can be a hobby. Gun ownership does not have to be a lifestyle. It can be a hobby. For those of us that do carry a gun for defense, you're right. It's got to be a lifestyle. But how many people have seen that guy carrying the Diamondback DB380 in a cell phone holster? And I've seen it open carrying. And instead of taking a photo to post it on Facebook to make fun of them, how many people have walked up, introduced themselves, say, hey, I'm not trying to give you a hard time, but if someone gets a hold of that cell phone carrier, it's going to come right off. Your muzzle's pointed behind you. You know, can I make a few suggestions? Would you like to come out to the range with us? Here's a Facebook group you can join that's got some great info. Not many people do, because it's really easy to ostracize people. The people that we need to ostracize are the people that are given the facts and choose to ignore them. And there are gun owners that choose to ignore the facts, and there are gunners that choose to own the facts, to refuse to own up to the facts. And there are politicians that refuse to own up to the facts. These people need to become the minority, and they need to be ostracized from responsible people. And if we can ostracize irresponsible behavior, man, that's what we call progress right there. Make them a minority and make it not popular to be the ones that are doing things wrong. And if we can do that, think of all the trends out there, all the safety trends. We got it done right there.
Yep. That really hits the key, because it seems like, especially nowadays, I'm talking in general, of we literally encourage the most irresponsible or terrible things nowadays.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's just, it would be great if we shunned them. If they decided to do something on their own that was irresponsible, we shunned them. Think how much of a difference that would make.
100%. 100%. You know, I think I joked this weekend, if I owned a private gun range, if I ever one day have the money to open up Trexico gun range, every one of my members will have a mugshot taken. The day that they become a member, they will have to sign stating that they understand the four life safety rules. And if you get caught doing something that endangers somebody else, violating those rules, you get kicked out and your photo goes up on the wall, and right under a big sign that says "Not smart enough to own a firearm." I mean, that's it. And we need to make it that way. But it's not gonna get to that point until we, as all responsible people, say enough is enough. Stop being irresponsible. Let's rally together. Let's start being responsible people, and we can get somewhere. But they've got us right now. They've got us pretty good bickering at one another about stupid stuff. You know, 9 versus 45, open carry versus concealed carry. Man, I want the little old lady that's packing a 22 short Beretta, because that's the only thing that her arthritis will let her to shoot, and it's the only gun that she could afford. And it's the gun that she likes. She's at least carrying, and if we can get her to live by those 4 life safety rules, and she can stitch a bad guy full of little tiny weak holes if he ever tries to do something wrong, and she understands the ramifications of carrying a gun as a responsible citizen, yep, I do not care. I do not care about the gear. I don't care about the gun. I care about the person, and that's where we need to be.
Oh, I think exactly. But something too, I mean, the 9 versus 45, I think we settled that this weekend. Did you hear the joke we had going on outside?
I certainly did not.
Oh, so during the night Sims run, out of the blue, Jesse just goes, you know, they don't make a 45 sim round because it's still deadly. It's just it was just we settled that debate right there.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the Taurus Judge simunition gun that will create black holes and suck the bad guy into another dimension.
Well, the last question would have been, what should responsible gunners do politically? But I think you kind of answered that one there. So you really kind of answered 2 there. But if there's anything else you want to throw in there, go for it. But I think to think globally, act locally sums it up pretty good.
Yeah, I've written more letters in the past couple months to a lot of Michigan, Senator Mike Green, who still has yet to respond to my letter, because his idea of being a pro Second Amendment senator for the state of Michigan is to make gun owners have to compromise. So I sent him a letter that was pretty straight to the point, stating that he's no friend of the Second Amendment. His office has yet to respond. I've written quite a few other letters. We need to do this, but I understand that writing, I mean, it takes time, and I'm self-employed, so I every now and then have a little bit more time to myself than the average Joe working their job. That's why I'm a big proponent. $20 makes you a member of the Firearms Policy Coalition. They one of the coolest things is they will send out newsletters letting you know what's going on with different legislation around the country, and they will give you the option to have a letter, a pre-written letter that you can digitally sign your name to, and they will email it to your representative. The coolest part is the letters are editable. So you can get in there, read it. If there's something that you just don't like or you'd like to expound on, you can type in a few sentences that get added to that letter, and they'll send it for you. I've used that system quite a bit. But FPC, local groups, just you got to get involved, people. And what's going on social media is not important. The Kardashians' life is not important. Taylor Swift winning against Apple, congratulations. A rich person won against a really rich company. This is not about this is not about the freedoms of Americans. We need to get back to Americans, and that's all Americans. So when it starts coming, you hear about rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Get involved, even if it's not gun related. That community that's out there where the guy got 30 days in jail for collecting rainwater. Come on, people.
Yeah.
You people should be writing your local representatives saying, hey, we used to tar and feather idiots like you for making laws like this. You do it again, and there's going to be consequences and repercussions at the ballot box. And it needs to happen. So yeah, just get involved. A lot of great, and I've said this, there's so many causes that are worthwhile, and you will get a headache trying to focus on them all. But if you can pick one, and because you're listening, you're probably a big supporter of the Second Amendment. That's a pretty good place to start. Pick an organization. If you want my flavor of the week, the FPC, Firearms Policy Coalition, they're doing great things. $20 makes you a member, and the information they'll get you alone is worth it. You'll get email updates about stuff that you never would have heard about going on in the country. But yeah, just get involved. Stop clicking like. Just stop doing stuff that doesn't have, it's wasting your time, and do stuff that actually can make a difference.
Unless it's sharing the show on Facebook, then please do.
Absolutely. Oh, of course. Well, that's important. That's incredibly important.
Well, and something I want to add in too, which I don't think a lot of people do, is vote. Get out and vote. So all the time, I see it all the time of like people complain about stuff. It's like, well, did you get in vote? Well, no, my vote doesn't matter. Well, yeah, it doesn't matter because you didn't vote. You can't say your vote doesn't matter or it doesn't count or it's some rigged system if you're not voting. I think like 40% of the population votes, if that, 30%,
right?
Something like that. Get out and vote. We can all be responsible for what we get.
Yep. If voting in this country had the popularity of American Idol,
yeah,
we might get somewhere.
Oh, I actually said this. I don't know how we got on this weekend at the class. I was like, just remember, there are people out there that buy Miley Cyrus songs and are voting. That's scary. Yeah. I don't know how we got into that at the show, or at the class, but outside during runs, we find ways to be entertained.
Yep. Well, take it one step here. I mean, there are people out there that they would have you disarmed, and they would have you only being able to be have the power to ask for the rest of your life, and that should hit even harder than a Miley Cyrus CD.
That's scary,
and they're okay with it. They would be perfectly okay with you and them and the rest of America being told what to do for the sake of quote unquote safety. And we know historically what that means and what that leads to, and that's it's unacceptable. So yeah, if you don't get involved, they are. I mean, they are. And you can sit back and go, well, it doesn't affect me because I don't like X, Y, or Z. But yet one day they're coming after X and they're coming after Y. And when you're left with Z, you're going to feel pretty bad.
Yep. Nope, you're 100% correct. Well, and again too, I hope this out there helps people. We're not doing these shows to bash gun owners by any means. We're doing it to help educate, and you know, I find getting in any sorts. There's a lot of related issues and or events that this could help with. Of like, for example, at the beginning of the month when we were out at the for the "You Suck Is Not the Gun" and the Handgun One of I think it was during the class. I didn't see it, but a guy walked by and flagged all of us with a shotgun.
Oh yeah.
This type of stuff goes into that, and then you follow up on your word. You talk to the place there, and they were fine with it. And then we were eating lunch, and you see guys out there shooting clays that are just being stupid with guns. And then you got the guy next to us here, who's him and his kid are walking in front of guns, and just irresponsible things. This type of thing of if you hear this and really critical think as you talked about on this of this will help you discuss this. This will help you talk to people, and you don't got to be a jerk about it. If you say, hey, this is bad for this reasons, have you thought about this? Maybe it can make a difference.
Yeah, I try not to candy coat things, and I always told my students when I was an instructor in the military that I don't pull punches, and I'm not going to pull punch to anybody. We've got a hell of a task. We got to clean up our house before we even go after another house. We've got to rally together, and when somebody, you do something that's unsafe or mildly irresponsible. We all make mistakes. Somebody calls you on it. Don't try though. Well, I've been carrying a gun for 20 years. Well, congratulations. You probably didn't doing it wrong. Just say, I apologize. Let's move on. Let's make this as safe as possible. But yeah, when you have a culture, as we experienced with a particular range where, oh, it was the action open on the semi-automatic shotgun, because then it's perfectly okay to point it wherever you want. And I'm hearing this from range management. No, what world are you living in? You have an NRA, you got an NRA banner hanging right out there on your sign. And look at that. Rule number 1 in your safety book is all guns are always loaded. So don't give me this. You're the range manager. You should have apologized and then told me how we're going to work together to make sure it doesn't happen again. But we know it's out there. We know that students are scared deathless of public ranges. So guys, just when you see it, be an ambassador, be polite, and correct it. If they want to get an attitude, walk away, report it, or don't go back there. And if we can make that range ostracized and say that it's an unsafe place to go, they'll change their ways because people will stop spending money there. They'll stop going there. We can, just like every other hot topic of the week, we can make a difference with our pocketbook, with our letters, everything. So yeah, but the first step is you got to do something. You can't just stand by and be a spectator.
Yep. Yeah, that's a great way I'm going to leave it on that point right there. I think that was a great ending. That was a great line. So I'm going to end it on that track. But before we do, I got to plug, because hopefully I'm going to try to get into the class. You have a low light class that is coming up in October. What other classes you guys got coming up?
We've got the full gambit. The one that we're only doing one this year, and it's the most difficult class that we have to fill. It is arguably one of the best in feedback from the students because they had no idea that this stuff existed. That's our Introduction to Intermediate Force class, which is all the less lethal, that deals with everything up until you can use a gun, from verbal skills to hand-to-hand skills, to pepper spray, to tasers, to every cool, crazy tool I just showed you before we were filming. We've got all sorts of equipment that we bring out to show what options responsible citizens have to deal with an assaultive threat, a threat that you cannot shoot, or you will go to jail because your gun is not authorized to use against them, but you don't have to try to fight them hand to hand. That's on 15 August, I believe. We've got about half the class is full. Really looking forward to that one. We demonstrate the taser. We have some students that volunteer to take their first live pepper spray hit of their life. I've taken 19 of them. They are not pleasant. It's a very viable and valuable tool, but you got to know its limitations, and you have to know how it actually works. All these girls in college and guys carrying pepper spray, but they have no idea what it actually does. And we will show you on a live human being come on out. It's a great time. And yeah, that's what we've got coming up. The low light class in October is awesome. Simunitions, 2-story simunition house. We provide all the weapons. Part of the class fee incorporates the simunition ammunition, which is a really reasonable cost. And yeah, it's going to be all low light, dealing with both just reactionary targets, and then of course, as you went through a force on force of a kind. We don't quite do force on force against the students, but the students will be expected to appropriately utilize force against role players, and that threw everybody for a loop on the last class. So we're looking forward to it.
Then you have another home defense class in August, I want to say.
I believe so. Yep.
And then I believe September, I want to say 15th. I could be wrong on the date. Me and Jesse already signed up for the we have basic carbine and then foundation carbine in September, I believe. I have to double check the dates. It's been a while since we signed up for it, but we'll be out there as well for that. So again, guys, go to trainmdfi.com. All links there. I can't tell you. The next episode we release here will be the AR for the home defense shoe house class. And that show might be broken into 2 shows as well, because the amount of knowledge that we walked away from that, I think we're going to have to talk about it for like 3 hours. Like it's going to be an intensive AAR, but again, I can't recommend you guys enough to where even if you're driving a while to get out here, to get with MDFI, dude. These guys are amazing guys. And as you heard here, I mean, Trek is he's an outstanding person, friend, citizen, Second Amendment advocate. He's a person you want to be around. I can tell you that much. Let alone for the quesadillas. What did you call them during the show?
Quesadillas.
That'll be that saying right there will be explained in the next episode. Trek, man, thank you so much for coming on and discussing this with us, man. I really appreciate it.
No, I'm always happy to be here. You're a great host, and this is such a great platform, and I enjoy talking about this stuff. And I'm glad to see, I think you said near 500 comments in the last segment. It's good that people are getting involved and talking about this. And even if it's stuff that I think you mentioned, there's stuff people that I don't agree, but thank you for sharing your point. That's what we need. We need people to shake hands and say, I don't agree with you, but I respect what you have to say, and thank you for not treading on me, and I won't tread on you. And if we can do that as a community, man, we're unstoppable. So yeah, thank you for having me on.
No problem at all. And real quick, as always, I got to plug a show, and I think a really good one to plug here, and we've done it some, and I should be plugging him more. Is I want to plug Greg Bakken over at Tactical Paradise. On this podcast, talks about things from tactical, everyday carry, the mindset of armed citizens. Just kind of talked about here, real life situations, scenarios, and the gear to go along with it. So if you guys haven't checked out Tactical Paradise, tacticalparadise.com or firearmsradio.tv/iTunes, please go check out Tactical Paradise. He has, recent episodes or what's happening to our LEO. He actually talks about episode 111, talks pepper spray, a whole bunch of stuff here, covers a variety of topics, kind of like our show as well. Episode 108 is, are you really a concealed carrier? Really fits along with everything we talked about here. So if you guys haven't checked out the Tactical Paradise, do so. Be sure to check that show out. Again, tacticalparadise.com or firearmsradio.tv/iTunes. And of course, hey, if you guys have any feedback on this series that didn't start out as a series, but it turned into a fantastic series, you guys got any comment, feedback, guest suggestions, your thoughts on this subject, email them to me at nick@firearmsradio.tv. And again, if you give us an iTunes review, I would greatly appreciate it. Also, check us out on Facebook. Check out MDFI on Facebook. Really appreciate it. So, Trek, man, thanks for coming on again. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I'll see you soon.
Sounds good, brother. You take care.
Yep. So, as always, guys and gals, I thank you for tuning in. I thank you for listening to us. We greatly appreciate it. And we'll see you next week for another episode of Practically Tactical.